Well, if you can't tell by my background, the countdown's on. Welcome into Game Day Scoreboard. Kiana Martin here with you as we begin counting down to Sunday's big game out in New Orleans, but also across the association. Now less than 2 days away from the trade deadline with already some blockbuster moves around the NBA. We dive into some best bets for Tuesday night as the second half of the season starts to take shape, but we got to start tonight's conversation with the most important position on the field and the most important game of the week. Well, it was 7 years to the date. They once backup quarterback called for one of the most iconic plays in Super Bowl history. Nick Foles asked then head coach Doug Peterson, "You want Philly, Philly?" And that bold call, affectionately known as the Philly Special, helped deliver the Eagles their first ever Lombardi trophy in a 41-33 victory over Tom Brady's Patriots. Now 7 years later, they'll try to create more magic in Super Bowl 59. This time around, this 2024-2025 Eagles team has their own brand of trickery that has helped in their quarterback's favor. With 3 rushing touchdowns in their NFC Championship win over the Commanders, Jalen Hurts now has more rushing touchdowns in the postseason than any quarterback in NFL history, surpassing 49ers Hall of Fame QB Steve Young's record of 8. Here's Eagles head coach Nick Sirianni on more on what he expects out of his offense this time around.
If you embrace adversity, it can shape you to who you are, and obviously that's been the case through Jalen and his career. But it is about embracing adversity. This game's not easy, and this game has its ups and downs, and that's how a football game. Seasons have ups and downs. From year to year has ups and downs. Well, that's how a football game goes, right? And nobody in the NFL, I've said this a bunch, nobody in the NFL pitches a perfect game. That doesn't exist in the NFL. You're going to have bad plays, you're going to have good plays, and it's about being able to focus your mindset on the next one. And so, like I said again, this team's embraced adversity. I don't think, you never know, but the things, even going back to the 2023 season, which we haven't talked a lot about since the beginning of the year, we're grateful for that. We're thankful for that. As bad as it sucked at the time, I know I'm grateful for that. I speak for myself. I'm grateful for that because it shaped us into who we are now, and a big reason why we're back here sitting at this moment again. And so, embracing adversity is huge, and for your development as a person, as a player, as a coach.
Embracing adversity. Well, there's a couple of areas where Jalen Hurts hasn't really seen too much adversity. A couple of hurts in the offense's efficiency in the red zone, along with his passing stats. The quarterback hasn't thrown an interception in the playoffs since 2021. 7 touchdowns to 0 interceptions entering Sunday's game this season. But all but one quarterback with 6 tutties or more and no picks went on to win the Super Bowl that year. The only one that didn't, well, that was Matt Ryan back in 2016, 28-3. We'll just leave that one right there. So what more does Hurts need to do to win his second title? Well, for that answer, we bring in CBS Sports NFL analysts Will Brinson and Emery Hunt. There's plenty on the line for both franchises, but specifically, what do they need to do to hoist that Lombardi in New Orleans? So we'll begin with Hurts. What's his keys to a victory Sunday night?
Well, Kiana, I think he's going to have to pass the ball effectively. And that sounds simple. He can do it. But I think the Chiefs are going to do a good job being able to slow down the run game to a degree. As much as you can slow down Saquon Barkley and then, of course, the tush push. They did it against Josh Allen and the Bills. They really flustered Allen in terms of those short yardage runs. I think they're going to be able to do it here. I think they're going to force Jalen. I think Jalen Hurts is going to come out. I think Sirianni will design a game plan to come out and pass early on to open up the run game. I wouldn't be surprised by that at all. So I think Hurts has got to be effective early in the pass game and downfield in the pass game in order to open up that run game, force Kansas City to sort of back up on defense, and then really you can do whatever you want at that point, and you can grind the clock, keep the ball out of Patrick Mahomes' hands, and try to bring another Lombardi back to Philly.
I truly believe it's work in the middle of the field. I think this is a matchup where the Philadelphia Eagles have an advantage against that Chiefs defense in terms of the safety play. We saw the safety play be an issue for Kansas City against Buffalo, and the Bills sort of started to exploit it until they got in their own heads and forgot the run game with James Cook. We know Philly won't do that. We know Jalen Hurts will love to take 1,000 swings at bat. It's death by 1,000 cuts in terms of how they operate offense. He's efficient in the passing game, and this efficiency is going to help open up the run game like Will talked about perfectly, because at the end of the day, it's about putting those safeties in the bind. You have to worry about Goddard. You have to worry about the short hook routes over the Carroll Flat area. I think that's where they're going to exploit. Next thing you know, they creep up, big shot deep down the field. We saw Jalen Hurts have success the first time these two teams met up in the Super Bowl 2 years ago, and I think he could have the same type of success throwing a football in this one.
You guys saying Jalen Hurts needs to open up that passing attack against Kansas City safeties. But, Emery, we know huge addition for Hurts this offseason has been Saquon Barkley, and we're also aware of the threat that both of them bring. But taking them completely out of the equation, I want to just look at this Philly offense as a whole. What offensive player, not named Hurts, not named Barkley, needs to step up and have a big game for Philly?
I'm going to start right in the middle, Cam Jurgens. And here's the thing. He was kind of banged up going into the NFC Championship game. That was a big story. He didn't start. A back issue flared up. And then the replacement got hurt, and then he had to come back in the ball game and still play pretty well. He says he's good to go for the Super Bowl. We'll see, because we know what Kansas City will do is see how healthy he is for the Super Bowl. They'll throw different games, stunts, and twists up front, try to see how healthy he is. But we know, and I've said this before and I'll say it again, big tackle propaganda has led people to believe that it's all about the left and right tackle. But really, offensive success is predicated on guard, center guard play. And the Eagles have some excellent guards with Dickerson and Mekhi Becton alongside Cam Jurgens at center. So Jurgens, to me, is going to be the biggest key in this ballgame for the offense of Philadelphia.
Yeah, look, the offensive line is everything for Philly, right? But I'm going to say Dallas Goedert. And I think, when you say he needs to step up, what we're talking about is let's just have a big game, right? Because that would imply that Dallas Goedert hasn't been stepping up. He's been awesome since he came back from injury for the Eagles. 7 catches, 85 yards against Washington, 4 catches, 56 yards against the Rams, had a touchdown and close to 50 yards against the Packers. So this is a guy that's been dynamic in the postseason. His physical and the yards after the catch, just finding ways to really complement what the Eagles have on the outside at wide receiver and A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, giving Jalen Hurts another easy button. And when you look at what the Eagles have done, when the big group of star receivers, Barkley, Hurts, are all out there, they've just been pretty unstoppable on offense. And I think Goddard plays a big part in that.
Absolutely. But meanwhile, for the Chiefs, no stranger to the pageantry and hoopla surrounding the Super Bowl. So minimizing distractions in all forms has been a focal point for Andy Reid over the last week. That also includes the noise surrounding that potential, phrase, three-peat. But here's what Reid had to say about the distractions.
And all this other stuff doesn't necessarily matter. It matters to people in the entertainment part of the business, but without the guys focusing on the game, or the coaches or myself in that same boat there, that you lose track of what this thing's all about. You can get really caught up in all this, and you can't get too far from what's real, and that's playing the game.
Yeah, Andy Reid, he ain't new to this. He's true to this. Patrick Mahomes ain't new to this, also true to this. But we've seen that Mahomes magic continue to show up just on every stage throughout his career. But, well, what offensive player not named Patrick Mahomes needs to have a day on Sunday?
I mean, you can list a lot of them, Kiana. I'm going to go a little bit off board here. I'll channel my inner Mike McClure from our show on Thursday on the network and say DeAndre Hopkins. How about Nuke Hopkins, who is like maybe a Hall of Famer? I mean, a lot of people would say he was definitely going to be in. I think it's probably borderline. But a guy who, they trade for. He's had some moments in Kansas City, but really his snap count has dwindled throughout the playoffs, and he just hasn't been a factor. This is a guy that talked openly about on Monday night about wanting to chase a ring, and that's fine. I mean, you go to Kansas City, that's where you want to do it. I think they need to win on the outside to open things up for Mahomes in that playbook, and the running game in particular, because running against Philly is really hard. And Hopkins, I think, could be a sneaky candidate to have a nice game after sort of seeing him phased out of that offense for Kansas City the last few weeks.
Time they bring up Kansas City's offense, you talk about Mahomes and you talk about Travis Kelce and you bring up Taylor Swift and you talk about, Kareem Hunt and research. You'd be like, Man, I know that DeAndre Hopkins out there chilling. Like, that's the guy that you have to get involved. Like, that's the one. That's the big X factor. Because for me, Worthy speed is going to be a problem for Philadelphia because of obvious speed. Hollywood Brown and his ability to stretch the defense and lift the umbrella off the coverage is one thing. But DeAndre Hopkins, to your point, is a future Hall of Famer, or at least on a trek toward that, and he wants to be a factor in why this team wins the 3rd Super Bowl in a row. But in order for that to happen, you have to target him. He has to get open. I'm pretty sure he's going to be lined up on Darius Slay. That's a matchup between 2 wily vets. So Hopkins having a big game could easily help Kansas City get their 3rd Lombardi.
A guy that he was very vocal about the fact that he didn't think he was ever going to be able to play on this stage. Well, now with an opportunity to do some damage, like you guys are mentioning, a guy who could really step up in the Super Bowl. But look, guys, whether you're betting on Mahomes or maybe you're rolling with the underdog, you got some interesting long shot bets to maybe sprinkle a little something on. Give me your long shots I can maybe keep in my back pocket heading into Sunday.
All right, I'll rip through these real quick. Jalen Hurts, 300 pass yards. He did it last time against the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. We talked about him passing. Makes a ton of sense. Xavier Worthy, 50 first-quarter receiving yards. All you need is one play. Xavier Worthy also to be the first guy to 20 rushing yards. They give him a little jet sweep. You never know what happens. I like a Noah Gray first touchdown scorer. Somebody to kick a walk-off field goal. Why not? That seems fun. And I'm not going to read them all, but I'll say this one too. Chiefs money line. Saquon Barkley anytime touchdown, and Sam Burns to win the Waste Management Phoenix Open on CBS, coupled without Scotty Scheffler. So Scotty can win. Sam Burns just has to be second. Chiefs win. Saquon Barkley anytime touchdown. You're looking at like 80-1 payout. And I'm dancing in the streets if that happens.
Listen, I will say this. I love that list he put together, Will, because one thing we know, everyone always thinks the game is rigged or is a script that we all get in the media. But I love the one where any team can have a walk-off field goal to win this ball game, because think about both kickers. Both haven't had their best seasons. So what a great way to cap off a magical NFL season, whether it's Philadelphia winning their 2nd Super Bowl with Jalen Hurts getting revenge, or Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs winning the 3rd straight NFL record Super Bowl in a row with a kicker walking off into the sunset as the hero, getting carried off. I could see that happening for either side, so I'm going with that at plus 1,200.
I like just all of the plus value. These are some really, really fun long shots, but hey, let's be honest. Anything can happen. We've seen plenty of action. You can catch that top 10 list on CBSSports.com from Will Brinson. And fellas, I'm also just going to say something that could be fun. I like the Gatorade color, the coin flip, all of those little fun ones too. You're going to have plenty of fun. Make sure you guys check out that list on CBSSports.com. Emery, Will, it's been a blast. Thanks, fellas. And the coverage doesn't stop here. We've got boots on the ground in New Orleans.